Okay, so this is my son Lindsay. He's not here today. He's 17 years old, and basically he's in the US and gets some treatment in Texas. And after a month, we had a rescan. It was actually looking like it was growing, and the doctor there referred us up to Washington State, which is where my son was recommended medical cannabis and started that treatment. So we did 4 trips to the US last year. We had amazing support of some of a team of doctors in the US that helped to work with us on the best, dosing, the best cannabis ratios, cannabinoid ratios to treat that tumour. And luckily in the US, there's California Pacific Medical Center has actually done some research on gliomas and breast cancer, and using cannabis as a treatment for those. And as a result of that research, there's a pharmaceutical company in the US now that's been granted orphan drug designation to develop a pharmaceutical drug to treat GBM brain tumours. So the US government have granted this already. They've recognised that the research is, has been effective. And there's also been other studies done around the world as well for brain tumours. I do agree with what Dr. Catalaris was saying though. And when you're looking at aggressive cancers and things like that, you really have to look at all options and, take some pretty drastic action. But, we just sort of felt that we may have some time up our sleeves, and probably the biggest impact for us at the time was the seizures, because Lindsay was having a lot of seizures. We were trying multiple epilepsy drugs, anti-epilepsy drugs that were not controlling his epilepsy. And so after dealing with a number of these drugs that were causing quite severe side effects, so everything from nausea to headaches to, there was one that was causing bradycardia, so his heart rate normally would sit about 66 beats a minute. This one drug would take it down to about 40 beats a minute. The US doctors said, look, we just can't, we can't have your son on this drug that's causing his heart rate to drop that low. Took him off it, and within days his heart rate was back to normal. So we'd already, sort of exhausted a number of options with all these anti-epilepsy drugs. So in the US, within the first 7 weeks of him being treated with the medical cannabis, I'm going to actually get Hazel to pass some images out, and you can have a look at these for yourself, but this one's a bit hard to see, but you can see in the beginning his tumours on the left-hand side there, tumour plus swelling. Within 7 weeks of starting the cannabis treatment, the tumour had reduced down to 0.8 of a centimetre. It started at 1.5 plus about 3.4 centimetres of edema and swelling around the tumour, which the surgeons had also said to us was concerning and conspicuous, that if they couldn't operate on that area, and they were concerned that there were abnormal cells in that area as well. So we had multiple surgeons that had told us that. So it reduced down to 0.8 of a centimetre. We basically came back to Australia. It started growing again off the treatment. We had to make a decision. I remember we had to make a decision to get back, so we were worried about that. And then playing a bit of catch up every time we went back to America. You can see here, this was October last year after treatment in the US on cannabis therapy. And then within 3 months of being back in Australia, again, grew 3 millimetres and the edema became conspicuous again. And then this next one is only 1 month after being back on the cannabis oil in Australia, actually. Now, so you can see that quite a big difference between those two tumour images. We faced all kinds of confusion about the imaging. We had people saying, no, these scans are not comparable. The difference has to be something to do with the uptake of the dye or the imaging equipment that's being used or the operator. So we decided that we were sick of hearing this, and we actually got a couple of scans done at 2 facilities in the same week to show that, yes, it was actually shrinking and that the measurements were correct. It's very hard when you're dealing with that kind of attitude, but I think Hazel's got them, she's handing them out. So yeah, very difficult when you're sort of dealing with that, not accepting that on face value. We decided that, you know, we obviously took our son to America because we didn't want to break the law. We didn't want to face the consequences of that. But in doing what we've done, it's actually had a huge impact on our family. It's been very difficult for us to be separated. It's been very, very difficult for my son, my youngest son, sorry, getting a bit emotional here, to have to be without his mum and his brother. I'm all right. And so we're back together again, which is great. We put an application into the TGA early this year, March, to have his specific cannabis oil imported from the US in the correct ratios that were recommended based on the research that was done in the US. The research that they've done in the US, basically they tried using just CBD alone. Thank you. They tried using CBD alone, and they also tried using THC alone on these tumours, on the GBM tumours, which is, GBM is a glioblastoma multiforme, which is one of the more deadly tumours. Thanks, Hazel. Brain tumour types. Now, Lindsay's, they don't believe it is that type. It can turn into that type. They figured if they treated it as if it was probably the more aggressive type, then anything less than that should have a result. So that's how the doctors in the US worked. And the thing I like about the way that the doctors work in America is they actually work with the patient as an individual. There is no one-size-fits-all approach. There is no, this strain works for this person, this strain works for that person, this person needs CBD. It's really a matter of working with what works for the patient, because different patients respond to different treatments. And as Dr. Catalara said, no, there's so many epilepsy syndromes, I think they call it syndromes, that, you know, they all need a different method of treatment. I think they're going as far in the US of even looking at ways of genetically matching strains to patients. And that's pretty exciting. And some of the exciting things that they're doing over there is even looking at other plant terpenes that can be combined with cannabis oil to help the effectiveness of that treatment. So Lindsay was lucky enough further on last year, towards the latter end of the year, to start using some terpene-enhanced oils as well. Now, terpene-enhanced oils would consist of cannabis oil, and it would also have other plant terpenes, including things like lemon, black pepper, lavender, combined with it. So the options are quite limitless with, you know, how these treatments can be administered and what is effective for the patient. So, so where are we at now? We're still waiting for the Justice Department. We actually applied to the Justice Department for an exemption for Lindsay to have treatment here in March of this year. We're still waiting for a response. I did actually speak to the Attorney General in September and told her that we were very frustrated, waiting for a response. We'd had one phone call, I should say. We had one phone call from the office saying, we have your application, it's going before the Attorney General soon, and you'll be hearing from us soon. And we haven't heard any more since our conversation with the Attorney General. So the other thing is the TGA. We had applied to them to import his oils from America, the oils that have been effective for him in America. In March, there was 5 additional requests for information. So to begin with, before that even happened, the email went to the wrong email address. It didn't actually go to the correct email address. Then there were 5 additional requests for information, which have been provided. Now, we're actually, now they're asking for a letter from neurologist and paediatrician, oh no, not paediatrician, sorry, oncologist. He doesn't have an oncologist. He was never referred to one because the feedback that we had from the paediatrician was that this is a low-grade tumour, won't respond to chemo, the concerns about radiation therapy, and that was coming from here and in America as well. So the problem is that doctors here are too afraid to write these letters. So we're in a catch-22 situation. We're faced with, we either just continue on here the best we can do, and the most important thing I would ask for is testing for patients and immediate access for patients so that they can have that peace of mind. And also, Grace will talk more about that. The other thing is, sorry, losing my track of thought. So we just need answers. We need patients to be able to access treatment now. We can't wait for trials. We can't wait for all of these delay tactics of talking to the Victorian Law Reform Commission and so on and so forth, because patients' lives are in jeopardy. We don't want to have to face the decision of having to move to another country to get this treatment for our son. And that's about it. I'm getting the wrap up. Thank you.